So it's not just me. So let me start off by saying I already know it sounds crazy and unbelievable, but that's alright. Because I know 100% that I am not crazy. And I've had other people witness these things as well. All my life, I've always had weird shit happen to me. Most of the time, it's small things like footsteps, things moving around, and the lights going on and off. My mother was a huge skeptic, and one of my earliest memories as a child was when I was about 4 years old, and my mom and I lived in an apartment. My cousin, who is the same age, came over to play, and it was shortly after Christmas, so I had tons of new toys to play with. One of my toys was a baby doll that was in a walker that laughed and rolled around by remote control. I was eager to play with it, so my mom opened it up, and my cousin and I started to play and have a good time. My mom called us down for lunch. My cousin and I went downstairs and started eating when we heard the doll upstairs running into the wall giggling. My mother yelled at me. She was in the kitchen about needing to eat and leave the remote alone. I told her that the remote was in the kitchen. I had taken it downstairs with me when I went down for lunch. She took the batteries out the remote, and the doll still kept giggling and moving around. She went to go check on it and came downstairs and had the doll in her hand and proceeded to throw it in the trash. I was hysterical and kept crying. She told me it was broken. Shortly after, my mom began dating a guy, and his son would always come over to our apartment for a few hours. He was much older and enjoyed playing jokes on me. My mom made me lay down and take a nap. As I was laying there, I can remember hearing a very scary voice coming from my closet. I ran in and told her that her boyfriend's son was in my closet trying to scare me. She said it wasn't possible, that they left shortly after I went upstairs to lie down. She checked the closet, and nothing was there, and told me I was gonna get up taking a nap. I was just trying to do that and just be quiet and go to sleep. After a year of dating, my mom and her boyfriend decided to get a house together. So they bought the house my aunt used to live in. After we moved into that house, I began to hear footsteps going up and down the stairs. My mom told me it was my imagination, and I was not used to sleeping in a new house, and that was it, right? There was nothing else. Up until one night, when I was already in bed and began to hear the noises. My mom came into my room to check to make sure that it wasn't me. She was in the living room at the time, so if it was me making those noises, I would have had to sneak past her into the kitchen, down the basement, and start stopping up and down the stairs. I told her it wasn't me, and she came up with, "It's an old house and it's selling" excuse. This and went on and on at this house until I moved in with my aunt at 13. My mom had become so used to hear the footsteps. Our house had all wooden floors, so it was easy to hear if someone was walking. I asked her about it, and she said, when I moved out, it stopped. After years of this, she finally accepted that maybe we had someone that had passed living in the house along with us. When I moved into my aunt's house, things like that happened there too. Doors would randomly swing open while you'd be sitting right next to them. My bedroom door would often swing back and forth, and I'd just say stop, and it would. It didn't bother me anymore, but I guess I was already kind of used to it. Small things would be moved around and around, lights would be on that I knew were already turned off. My best friend began staying over, and she would hear and see it too. It became the running joke between her and I that we had a pal and it was named Ghosty. I know, very original. Years passed with all this small stuff happening, and my best friend and I decided to get our first apartment together. We were so friggin' excited for this. We were both 19 years old, and we were ready to be out on our own. We moved in January, and it wasn't even a month later before things began to escalate. The first thing that happened was music. My friend, will just call her A, called me while I was working, and she was very scared. She said, "Did you leave your music on when you left?" I told her I hadn't, and that I had been gone for a few hours, and asked her why. A told me that when she came home, she was making herself dinner when she heard music start playing upstairs. She walked up to check it out, and when she went to grab my bedroom doorknob, it quit. She opened the door and my laptop was laying on my bedclothes and I did not own a radio. She wanted me to get home as fast as possible. Living in the area, we didn't have it the best. So, A's boyfriend's mom bought us door and window alarms, the ones that weren't connected to a security system, just that you turn on by a switch, you know. We took them by our front door, back door, and the large window in our living room. We turned them on when we went to bed, and turned it off when we got up and was moving for the day. A morning after A had gone to work, I went downstairs to turn it off. When I got to our window, I noticed it had been ripped down and torn apart. All the wires were showing. I thought maybe someone had tried to break in at first, but the alarms were on the inside. So I called to ask her, and she said she didn't mess with them, and that they weren't like that when she left the morning. One day I got home from work, and I went upstairs, and I started to run some bath water, and I climbed in. I heard a door open and shut, and someone walk upstairs. I began talking to A, asking her why she was home so early, and going on about what my plans were and blah 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 blah. She never responded. When I got out, I went into her room calling her a bitch for ignoring me, and she wasn't even there. I went downstairs and our door was locked, and the security bar thing they have in hotel rooms that you can only lock from the inside was still locked. I walked around the apartment and she wasn't there. I shook it off and called my mom to tell her what had been going on. I was talking to her on the phone and playing around on my laptop when suddenly it died, and my phone randomly lost service. I was like, what the fuck? I yelled, that was enough, got my phone, got service a few minutes after. I called her back, and she suggested she come over with a Ouija board. I tell her, hell no! I know what this thing is, but it doesn't really bother me much. And my luck, I get stuck with a demon on top of whatever it was that followed me everywhere if we used that goddamn Ouija board. Anyways, a few months later, my mom passed away, and I had a crucifix that was blessed by a priest that was in my mom's casket. I brought it home and the same day hung it up. Later that night, A and I were sitting on the couch watching TV when we heard a loud sound of breaking glass. I get up and start bitching about her stupid cat and how her stupid cat was always getting on the counters. At this point, both cats were sitting on the opposite couch with their hair standing on end, hissing towards the kitchen. I look at A and she looks at me. I get up and peek into her kitchen, and instantly tears came to my eyes. It was like an automatic shift in energy inside the room. It was like dread and terror. There was glass everywhere. It was all over the floor and the counter. A began saying, fuck this, over and over and over again. I walk over to try to see where it came from and open my kitchen cabinet door that held our glasses. All the reshelves were empty. All the glasses that were in the cabinet were shattered all over the floor, like someone had reached in and pulled them down. I freaked out. I told her to grab her purse and we left. That was the first time something like that has ever happened. I was terrified and so was she. The only thing I could think of was the fact that I just hung up a black crucifix on my wall earlier that day. The last straw for me in that apartment was about 2 days later when I was home alone. I was doing laundry, which was situated in between my kitchen and living room. Our living room was carpet, but the kitchen was tile. I was standing on the tile when I heard a crack. I look over to our sliding glass door that was about 4 feet away. There was a crack in the tile straight down the middle. I said, what the fuck? And the floor cracked all the way until about an inch away from my feet. Later that week, we said fuck this nonsense and moved into A's boyfriend's house. It was a 3-bedroom house and was a lot bigger than our apartment. I figured whatever was happening, it might stop or go back to being little shit again. I was moving my boxes in and stacked 2 boxes on top of each other inside my room, hung up the same blessed crucifix on the wall, and walked into the other room to sit and talk with my friends. When we all heard a loud bang, we went to go check it out, and the 2 boxes were across the room like they had been kicked. When I turned around, I saw that my crucifix was sitting upside down in a basket that was directly below it, almost like it had been taken off the wall and sat there. My roommates looked at me and said, start freaking out. That was the last thing that happened for a while. I was enjoying the peace and had moved into a house with my boyfriend. I refused to hang back up my crucifix because I didn't want to chance it. By this time I had my son, who was only a few months old when we moved into his house that I live in now. I had almost completely forgotten about it, honestly. Figured whatever it was got bored and moved on. Nope. about a year ago. My boyfriend and I were upstairs, asleep, in my bed. My son was at my grandma's for the night. I woke up out of a dead sleep to the sound of a door rattling. You know when you're not turning the door handle to open it, but pushing on it and it makes like a banging sound? I shook my boyfriend awake. It was 3 a.m. in the morning, and I was thinking that someone was trying to break into our house. I grabbed our shotgun I had next to the bed and listened. It kept happening, that banging sound. Then it stopped for a second and heard it again, but it was a distant sound. Almost like it was coming from our basement. We both stay there still as can be, listening. This went on, switching back and forth between doors for about 5 minutes. Finally, I got pissed and got up. Our room is a loft style and takes up the entire upstairs, and there are 2 bedrooms downstairs. One was a roommate who was across the street at his mom's house, and the other was our infant son's room. My boyfriend, who is a manly man, rough redneck, is freaking out and calls our roommate. We asked him where he is. He said he's across the street and is coming over right now to check things out. Our window looks over the street, so we see him walk across the street. When he gets about halfway, it stops. My friend Jay comes rushing into the house, and my boyfriend and him check every room with a loaded gun, while I sit by the doors with another loaded gun, still not taking any chances that someone was trying to break in. They go through the house, making sure every window and door is locked. We finally figured out nobody had tried to break in. My boyfriend is freaking the fuck out. Our roommate Jay, who is about 6'3" and a solid 300 pounds, is also freaking out. 3 months later, 3 a.m., we are sound asleep, and when we hear a loud bang, that wakes us up out of our dead sleep. My boyfriend jumps out of bed, grabs the gun, and I grab my son. He goes rushing down the stairs. When he hits about halfway down, he hears another loud bang, which sends him into panic mode. He's screaming, "Get the fuck back, I have a gun, I'll blow your fucking head off." Again, thinking someone is inside our house. After a few minutes of silence, he comes back up, shaken. I asked him what it was, and he said that our kitchen and bathroom window had fallen out. Our window are the kind of easy cleaning that you can fold down. There was no wind, no breeze, it was not stormy, and our windows stay locked. How that happened, we have no clue. Jump to today, normal lights, footsteps, water turning on, and now shadows. My son is almost 2 years old and very talkative. He has his new monster thing. When he got it, I have no clue. His dad or I have never said anything about monsters at all. The other night, I was home with my son after work. His dad was working nights, and he keeps clinging onto his legs saying, "Bad monster," meaning bad monster. I told him there was no missed monster and kept washing dishes. He lets go of my leg and walks to the doorway of the kitchen and the living room and stands there for a second and starts hysterically crying, running to me, saying, "Monster, monster." I walk over and look, nothing. I chalk it up to him being grouchy. About 3 hours ago, I was getting ready to go to a job interview, and my son and I were sitting on the couch when we hear a tussling. Then everything in my hallway closet comes tumbling out. He looks at me and I look at him. He says, "Aw, Monzer." Then 2 minutes later is screaming. I calm him down and get him ready to go to the neighbor's house, but my fish tank shuts off. All power to my entire house goes off. He looks at me and whispers, "Monzer." I take him over to the neighbor and come back to check. If it's a breaker, nope. Call the electric company, nope. Leave and come back for my interview, still no power. Mind you, everyone else does have power, including my neighbor. About 20 minutes into writing this, and it all kicks back on, so whatever it is, I don't know why it follows me. I don't know why I'll randomly do violent things and not do anything at all for months at a time. I don't know. If you guys have any ideas, that would be great. Clearly, whatever it is, must look pretty scary, because my 2-year-old son is pretty scared of it. Chupacabra encounter. I like to start this story by providing the bona fides of the man who shared the experience with me. He's a chief warrant officer with 30 years in the Navy and a hunter since he was 12 years old. He's seen the world, been in combat, and spent more time in the woods than I have been alive. What I'm trying to say is he's a salty motherfucker who does not scare easily. Anyways, I met Bill through my father, who was also in the Navy, and got to talking about how I go hunting wild pigs on my uncle's dairy farm Just south of Jacksonville, we generally go out into pairs at night, one person manning a 2 million candlelight spotlight, the other man the shooter. We roam the cornfields until we hear animals rustling around, hit the spotlight, bang, 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 rinse, repeat. So one relatively cold January night, we get a group together for some good old hawk shooting. Bill and I go out to a field where we saw some fresh tracks earlier in the day and camp out. There was no moon out and a bit cloudy, so it was as dark as you can get in Florida. Perfect conditions to see some pigs. Sure enough, we hear some rustling and grunting, and Bill hits the spotlight, revealing 5 decent-sized pigs just standing there. Eventually, I raise my Marlin Lever Action 30-30 and fire at the lead pig and down him with a shot behind the ear. One of the better shots I've made, to be honest. Smoke from the muzzle briefly obscures my view, but Bill yells out their location and tracks them with the lights. I get off about 3 blind spots and hope for the best, but they go high. The pigs take off directly away from us and get to the tree line, so Bill and I stand there surveying the scene, ears ringing, adrenaline pumping. We see the down pig, share a fist pump and a laugh, and start walking towards us. As soon as we take a step, we hear a scream from behind us, a long, ragged, angry scream. I mean, it was loud, and it was close. I freeze and look at Bill, but he's looking back at me with the same look of confusion and the same look of anger on his face, and fear. I ask him, what the fuck was that? He replies, fuck. He shines light behind us, slowly scanning the open field and the trees beyond, and we see nothing. He starts to say something when we hear the scream again, louder, closer, longer. If you want to know what it sounded like, next time you go to a football game or a concert, you might scream and holler and wind up losing your voice. When you wake up feeling hoarse and raspy, scream as loud as you can for 5 seconds. That's what it sounded like. Bill immediately says, give me your pistol. We need to get out of here. I hand him my gun. What about the pig? Fuck the pig. Now we're about a mile away from the car, on a 1,000-acre dairy farm. What kind of a demon bitching at us at 2 a.m. in the pitch black? We start to panic. Like, what was going on right now? Like, what the hell, though? We begin as a brisk walk away. Carefully scanning in the 360 turns into a steady shuffle, into a light jog, into a full-on sprint. I don't remember if there were any more screams, but my adrenaline was turned up to 11, and my focus was on 2 steps ahead of me, and not getting left behind. We make it back to the truck without incident, and hightail back to my uncle's house. On the ride home, we have a calm discussion about what had just happened. The fucking fuck was that? I don't fucking know, man. No fucking way that was a hog. It sure as fuck wasn't. To cap it all off, we get back to my uncle's house, and the other guys had heard the shots, and were waiting for an update, standing around a bonfire, looking, listening. Now, to his credit, Bill played it off cool, as I had a death grip on my beer, eyes bulging, and seeing monsters out in every one of the shadows. Yeah, we left the pig out there. We'll get in the morning. Say, Uncle, we heard a pretty funny noise. Sounded pretty funny. Ah, did ya? Yeah, raccoons can make some pretty interesting ones. I'm pretty sure it wasn't a raccoon. It kinda sounded like a person screaming. Oh, yeah? Oh, that, yeah, I've heard it a few times myself, too. We don't know what it is. We'll call it the chupacabra. And that was that. Been out there many times after, and thank the Lord I've never encountered it again. But I will be fucked if I don't think about it constantly when I am out there. Something in the attic. Posted this to Reddit, the truth is here, and thought I tried here too. Okay, so lay this out nice and quick. I'm hoping for some debunking here. I've tried myself, but I cannot think of any explanation for this. So I live alone. Unless you want to include my cat, then I live with a cat. I have a house with an attic, conversion, but since it's just me, it's basically just an empty room. I think the previous tenant used it as a bedroom or something like that. Obviously, when I first moved in, I did go up there to have a snoop around. There are 2 light switches for the room, one at the bottom of the stairs, and one that is a long string that you pull that is right in the middle of the room. There is a door at the top of the stairs that I always keep shut. I close every door behind me. An open door really bugs me, you know? Now, after living in this house for about 3 months, I noticed the door was open and the light was on. I could see the lights on the wall opposite the door. No big deal. I obviously forgot to shut the door and turn off the light, and I go and do just that. Skip on about 2 weeks. I arrive home from work. It's early January and it's dark outside. I can see the window to the room from outside, and I can see the light is on. My first thought is, shit, I've been robbed. I barge into my home, quickly sweep the first 2 floors expecting to find someone. No one. Shit. They're still up here. I fly up my stairs, the door is shut and the light's still on. I swing the door open, nothing. I will say I'm very skeptical about stories when I hear feeling of dread or felt like I was being watched, but I had these feelings. I had this horrific feeling. I wasn't really alone up there, but it's a simple empty box room. I try my best to shrug it off, turn off the light, and shut the door. I've been living there nearly 7 months now, and since that day, I get the same feeling when I walk past the stairs to the attic, day or night. The light is on at least twice a week, but now it switches itself off after a while. Recently, and this is why I'm posting this, I've started hearing very loud bumps coming from there, which is right above my bedroom. The first time I heard it, I assumed someone was trying to get in through the window, so again, I run up and nothing. Lastly, my cat, who is tiny and during the night stays downstairs, refuses to go up there and has actually done the whole arch back hissing thing at the door. It could because he's a little fucktard, but given the situation and the fact he's never hisses at anything ever, it freaks me out. Sorry if this is poorly written. I'm not a great storyteller, just a freaked out guy that is hoping someone can give me a logical explanation.